Good day and welcome to another episode of What's Happening Today, presented to you by Rapido News Network. In our first story, we will discuss that the Fed or Federal Reserve could move toward another big rate increase as inflation lingers. Next, we will talk about global oil prices dipping below $100 per barrel. Post that, we will discuss the desperate actions by UK's Prime Minister Boris Johnson to maintain his majority in the parliament. And in our final story, we will talk about the Russian Ukrainian conflict. So let's get started. In our first story, we will discuss that the Federal Reserve is determined to chalk off rapid inflation before it becomes a permanent feature of the American economy. And to do so, it is steering towards another 3/4 point interest rate increase later this month, even as the economy shows early signs of slowing and recession fears are continuously mounting. Economic data suggests that the United States could be headed for a rough road. Consumer confidence has plummeted. The economy could post 2 straight quarters of negative growth. New factory orders have sagged, and oil and gas commodity prices have dipped sharply lower this week as investors fear an impending downturn. But that weakening is unlikely to dissuade central bankers. Some degree of economic slowdown would be welcome news for the Fed, which is actively trying to cool the economy, and a commitment to restoring price stability could keep officials on aggressive policy path. Inflation measures are running at near the fastest pace in 4 decades, and the job market, while moderating somewhat, remains unusually strong, with 1.9 available jobs for every unemployed worker. Fed policymakers are likely to focus on these factors as they head into their July meetings, especially because their policy interest rates, which guide how expensive it is to borrow money, is still low enough that it is likely spurring economic activity rather than subtracting from it. Minutes from the Fed's June meeting that were released on Wednesday made it clear that the officials are eager to move rates up to a point where they are weighing on actual growth as policymakers ramp up their battle against inflation. Now, in our next story, on the global benchmark for oil, Brent crude dropped below $100 a barrel on Wednesday for the first time since late April, as fears of a looming recession spread among traders. Oil prices, which rose to above $120 a barrel only a month ago, have been slipping over the last 2 weeks, but the drop has accelerated in recent days. Energy experts says that there were no fundamental change in the energy market, apart from some signs that the fuel sale may be slowing in the United States, which is feeding the perception that the economy is slowing. Metal and other commodities are also dropping in price. If a recession materializes and inflation continues to push prices for almost everything higher, oil demand is almost certain to fall, bringing price with it, says Louis Dixon, a senior analyst at Rystad Energy, an analytical research firm. There is a sharp divergence of opinions among experts about where the oil price will go in the weeks and months ahead. Prices will ultimately depend on how deep an eventual recession might be, he further added. Now, in our next story, increasingly desperate Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Mr. Boris Johnson, could go nuclear and ask the Queen for a snap general election to save his skin and quash the rebellion, which has seen more than 40 members of parliament quit his government. According to the allies, the Prime Minister yesterday rejected calls to step down, vowing he would fight until the bitter end. And in a sensational twist of events last night, he fought back and dramatically sacked Snake Michael Gove in revenge after Mr. Grove told him that the game was up. The PM hid out of sight, where he held evening talks with top ministers including Priti Patel, who told him that he had lost the confidence of the Tory party and should not continue in office. But he refused to listen. One ally of Mr. Johnson said he is not going anywhere. He reminded the minister that he has a mandate from 14 million people and told them that no one is going to take it off him. His allies have now raised the prospect of taking the nuclear option and dragging the Queen into the furor to dissolve parliament to trigger an election. Critics have branded the idea deluded madness, which would spark a constitutional crisis if the Queen turned down his request, and senior officials and MPs have reportedly warned him against this Trumpian strategy. Deputy PM Dominic Raab is reported to have told the Prime Minister that he risked putting the monarch in an intolerable position if he tried to call a snap election, according to the report obtained by the media network Sun. Now, in our final story on the Russian Ukrainian conflict, in the first phase of its war to capture Ukraine's eastern Donbass region, Moscow's strategy was to corral defenders in urban centers, pound them with artillery, and leave them with the terrible choice of either retreating or fighting on, cut off from reinforcement and a means to escape. The strategy enabled Russian forces to claim Luhansk, the more northeastern of two provinces of the Donbass area. In the new phase of the war, aimed at consolidating power and gaining more territory in the other province of Donetsk, President Vladimir Putin's forces have already started to repeat the pattern. This time, however, making it work could prove more difficult. Russia-backed separatists set up breakaway republics in both Luhansk and Donetsk in 2014 and have been fighting Ukrainian troops ever since. The battle for Luhansk began in earnest in April and reached its climax this week when the city of Lysychansk fell. Military experts said that Ukrainian forces defended territory aggressively in Luhansk, made smart tactical decisions, and even performed the difficult maneuver of retreating from Lysychansk under fire to preserve their forces' strength and avoid encirclement. In the end, though, they could not withstand Russia's superior firepower. Artillery is one of the most important components of Russian operation, said a report this week from the Royal United Service Institute, a research institute based in London. And in terms of lethal capacities, it has become Russia's mission-critical force multiplier. The Ukrainian authorities framed the fighting in similar terms. Yes, they have an order of magnitude more forces and means, Luhansk military governor Serhiy Haidai said on Wednesday, referring to Russia's artillery advantage, but he argued that the situation was changing. Now, that was all for the major news update for July 7th. Stay tuned for our next update on the ongoing world affairs. We hope that you find this video useful. If you like this video, hit like. And for a continued update on what's happening around the world, consider subscribing. To get notified whenever we post something new, hit that bell icon. If you have any comments or any suggestions for us, please let us know in the comment sections below. Thank you.